Cut it out, Bo. Go downstairs. Go. I'll be down in a minute.
You know how it is, like starting up. It's hard as shit.
Whether they're good, bad, or ugly, getting the message out there that people aren't just like these superstars or shitbags. Like, there's a point behind everybody, what they're doing. I'm a fucking moron. Mike.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Here with you as always, me, Ben. Today, I am joined by Justin Yarbrough of the Donut Shop Podcast. Justin, thank you for coming on.
What's up? Thanks for having me, man. This is cool. It's fun. We've been chatting for a while, and I'm excited for what else we can talk about.
Yeah, we kind of dove into a bunch of stuff before we started, but it was good. Justin is a cop down in South Florida. He is he's got his own podcast where we actually kind of connect on that. We love hearing the stories of people. We kind of dive in on just different aspects, but everybody loves to hear a story. So today I get to hear Justin's story, which is kind of an honor. So we'll dive right in. Justin, please tell us where you're from, how you're raised, like just all that beginning origin type story stuff.
Yeah. And it's kind of part of that like imposter syndrome or whatever. You're so used to being interested in listening to everybody else's stories that to sometimes feel like I have stories is a little weird. But I get that sometimes, and they end up coming out eventually. But yeah, I've grown up my whole life down in South Florida. I went, grew up good family. My parents. That's always one of those stability things. I got both parents, and especially still around. My wife and I actually live with them right now, so just kind of. They're gone for a lot of the year in an RV, so we take care of the house, and it works out perfectly. It's a cool family unit. A lot of dogs in the house and that kind of stuff, so it's fun. But yeah, I grew up down here in South Florida, and always had kind of service in mind. Growing up through Boy Scouts, and then even getting to my Eagle Scout. And finishing that up, and that's kind of something that I do. I was telling you before, like I really get deep into hobbies, and I think that kind of is probably one of the places where it started. Like you start something, and then I always like to finish it, or get to the top of the mountain, so to say. So I did that when I was young, going through the Scouts. And then I stayed in Florida and went to the University of Central Florida, up in Orlando. Fun school. It was back in 2000, 2004. So we weren't really any kind of a great football school, but it was fun, and it was also not too far from home, that it was a pretty quick trip to get back home if there was something that I needed or forgot or whatever. So I've never really lived far from home, or far from where I grew up. Whereas it's different with my wife. She's from California, grew up in LA, and moved over, and she came over here, left her family, and when she was 18. So, she's got an interesting perspective that's different than mine, and it's kind of cool to unite like that and actually be able to look at things differently, together, and see that kind of stuff. So, I know you guys that are in the military are used to kind of bouncing around, or being in different home bases and abroad and all that kind of stuff. So, it's different.
Yeah, I would, just to jump in. I can relate pretty heavy because I born and raised Missouri. Joined and left, but I came back eventually. I got to be stationed there for a couple of years, and now I'm in Kansas, so I get to come there. And
Yeah.
but my wife is from Phoenix, Arizona, and she joined, and she really never went back there very much. Her family moved eventually to Florida, and she's gone and seen them a few times, but it's kind of that opposite dynamic like you're talking about, where
Mm-hmm.
I was always pretty close to them, visiting a lot, and my wife really wasn't really attached to that area, and it was always like a different scene for her, especially from Phoenix to Missouri. So I
Oh
definitely
yeah.
that feeling. Was it what'd you go to college for? And yeah, let's just go down that. What'd you go to
Yeah.
college
I,
for?
I mean, I did what we tell people not to do. criminal justice to be a cop. And you know, it was just one of those things. Like I took the ASVAB when I was in high school. I was in JROTC, so I took the ASVAB, and you know, it was like you'd be a great park ranger, you'd be great with law enforcement, you know, federal, state, local, all that kind of. It broke all that down, you know. So I was of that mentality, like you'd be great in the military, all that kind of stuff. You know, so I, I and I sucked at math. My algebra teacher, my algebra whatever. Well, she was my algebra teacher. Then she was my whatever you take for dumb people algebra in between. I think it was called finite math. And then you had to take algebra 2 to get into college. And so I was bad, and I passed the finite math one, and then I'm in algebra 2, and it's like my last semester in high school, and I didn't, like I had like a D or something like that. Like I was gonna pass, but it was barely. And then my final, I flunked it, and it was we had 4 classes per semester, so you had 2 one day and 2 the other day. So I took that test the first testing day of our 2 days, and so the teacher, I came by to be like, how'd I do? And she pulled me in, and she's like, Justin, I know you've already been accepted to school. Like I already had my acceptance letter, and I was literally like 2 weeks after going to orientation for summer. She's like, I'm not pulling this away from you. I know you're going into criminal justice. She's like, my daughter does criminal justice. So she's like, I know you don't need math in that degree. So I passed you. I gave you a D or a C, whatever. So I got
Yeah.
the passing grade that I needed to, even though I didn't really. So thank you very much. You know, I appreciate her. She's no longer with us, but I appreciate her for pushing me through and getting me out of there. It's not like I was a fuck up, but you know, it was uh, just math isn't my thing. And so I went to school, and it was great. And
Yeah.
you only had to take 1 math class for my degree.
Yeah. It's a shout out to the teachers that help the kids that suck at certain stuff like that. Because I was
Mm-hmm.
pretty bad at math, but I didn't struggle that much. But I knew some guys that they were like, "You're gonna fail high school if you don't do this," and then they would help them along.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you go down a rabbit hole about the whole education system where it's like, do you really need that kind of shit? Like,
No, I mean, yeah, I'll dive down that a little bit. Like I've always been a big follower of soccer, and so locally here we used to have a Division 2, an American Division 2 soccer team, the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, and so we had players from all over that would come over, and that was where I took my first leap into podcasting. We had some friends, and we tailgated for the games. So we decided to make the Tailgate Show, which was a podcast. And it was in my friend's kitchen, and it was at a kitchen table. We had 4 mics. We ran it through Blog Talk Radio, which is a different type of host. And you host with Skype, rest in peace, and you get a call-in phone number, so you're actually able to have call-ins. So it was more of a real, like a terrestrial radio station where you know, oh, we got a caller from the 904 area code, welcome, you know, and so you
oh
see it on
wow,
a computer screen. So it's freaking awesome. And then it podcasts out into the internet so that you can listen to it later on if you want to. It was on Apple and all that kind of stuff. And so it was cool because the other supporters groups for the other teams in the league would call in. So I've made friends. So when I was just recently up in New Jersey, I'm still friends with a guy that works NYPD that used to be a follower of the New York Cosmos team, and he came over to the brewery and hung out and hung out that night. So he's a good buddy that I stay in contact with. So it was cool, and so we got into that that podcasting realm, and I've almost forgot the direction where I was going in that
we were
thought
talking about
process.
college, but it's okay.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
interesting as hell. Holy shit.
But yeah, I
Uh,
got into that. There was a purpose for talking about that podcasting, but I don't remember. But yeah, um, but I mean, back into the college stuff, it was fun. So I wanted to go Secret Service, and but more for the fraud and wireless fraud type investigations that they do as well, aside from protective details. And so I would host through my fraternity would host career fairs for law enforcement, and Secret Service was there, and that was one of the ones that I've tried to sign up first, and I. Try to rub some elbows and network with them. And they were like, get a master's degree or get experience. And I was like, ah, man, I've been in college for whatever, 12 plus 4, like 16 years. So it's kind of like, I don't really feel like doing this master's thing. Let me, go get some experience. And then, and hey, here we are. You start doing that experience thing and you're like, all right, this ain't bad. I'm making decent money, having fun. I'm not, you know, I'm not bouncing around to station, like you would in the federal programs. So I was like, maybe I'll just stick this out. I'm already 3 years, 4 years deep in the law enforcement career. So that's money going into a pension. So instead of pulling that or letting it, whatever, you know, let's just stick it out, you
Yeah,
know.
I think it's like it's entrancing when you're younger of like I'm gonna see the world, I'm gonna do hardcore
Mhm.
shit. But like then you like my job, like you're like the pay's good, 20 years, I get a full retirement, like all this
Yeah.
stuff. But like I'm tired of bouncing like you talked about, I'm tired of bouncing around where I'm like, in that case, you're like, you know, I get to stay here, I get to do this, this is feeding in. I like that, I totally I think people there's a new trend I noticed with like younger generation where I think the model they said for um the job market is basically you get 5 years experience, you kind of hop to a new job, then you get 5 years, and then you keep because all jobs want experience now.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, there's something beautiful about just staying at a job for 20, 30 years and then calling it quits and you're set, there's something nice about that.
I'm gonna retire in 7 months, and I'll be 43 years old. Like I can start a full, fresh, new 20-year career if I really want to. So, it's I mean, there's benefits to both of them. Like some people just like, hey, if you're good at savings, but what did I say before? I'm not good at math. So it probably equates to not being good at saving money or being fiscally responsible. So for me to know that somebody's taking X amount of dollars out of my paycheck every 2 weeks and putting into something that's going to be a way for me to make a whole bunch of money for the rest of my life that I didn't really have to think about. I didn't have to monitor. I didn't have to get upset when the stock market drops or when the bottom falls out or this or that, like people do when they look at their 401ks or other investments or these, all of our friends are day traders where they're all screwing around. It's basically like a betting website. That's what I see Robinhood as is a betting website. You're just betting on stocks. And,
Oh yeah.
and, and I try not to get into that at all. But so I know at least I have that pension for me sitting there, which is one of the biggest draws to, what I do, a police officer, a government worker. That's, we don't always talk about it or think about it, but then we're like, yeah, no, a lot of it is the stability of at least the financial aspect of knowing that that job is there. And then that pension's there at the end, usually.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about these type of jobs falling out. Like they're not number one, no cop job, no firefighter. Well, from some stuff I heard, maybe they're going away, but they're not completely going away, right? Like they're not
Yeah,
the defund the police didn't really work too well, but
no.
like all that type stuff, it stays true and true, and nobody's gonna downvote like or upvote, I guess, taking away the pay of any civil servant job typically. Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
always gonna be guaranteed.
Sometimes, and there was times like I was on the union board and we kind of passed on getting raises for a while. And the status quo is always to get cost of living increases in every 3-year contract that we go for. But we were just kind of reading the tea leaves on like what was going on. And this was, after the housing crisis. This was like maybe 2011, 2012. So things were improving, but they weren't great yet. And we knew that there was things that our city by no means was struggling, but we were like, all right, hey, here's an olive branch. We're going to take zeros for COLA or for cost of living increases. And then, but remember, like next contract that comes up, like we did this, and they did. They took care of us on the next one. So we, because the biggest thing was by opening up that contract, and that's a big conversation to get into, but you open up that contract, it could have hurt us even more. Like they might have tried to take some things away from us. So we really tried to keep things at least status quo, and it worked out in hindsight for us. Um, but that's something that I tell to some people, and the agency I work for is like a 200 officer department, so it's not small by any means, but it's not a large metropolitan. And the more and more I talk to people and learn about some of these 12-person departments that they only, it's like, how do you, I have 12 people sitting in my briefing, so just for my squad. So it's odd. So those are the ones where I could see, and then sometimes you read that in the newspapers where they're like, entire police department resigns. Well, it was 12 people, but
Oh,
they were also maybe slightly corrupt, or there was, you know, something bigger. The Department of Justice was coming in to do some investigations, and 5 people were about to get fired by the state, kind of thing. So that's where you run into those kind of problems. But for the most part, these mid-size agencies like mine that aren't in the thousands or the tens of thousands, most of them are pretty stable. And then one of the things that I tell some of these young kids, or even like we have ride-alongs for perspectives that come in. If they're in the hiring process, they'll be like, hey, come in for a ride-along for 4 or 5 hours and really see what the job is, because some of these kids really, for some reason, have no clue what they're getting into, and they sort of freak out in the first couple of phases of training, and then it's like, do you not know what you were coming to do? So they're putting them in our cars now, like when they're in the middle of their polygraphs and stuff. And and I tell them, I go, one of the things with my city is we have a lot of like we have a lot of utilities that we sell to other cities, like water, natural gas, stuff like that. We put them out into other cities, and we handle like these cities like water and all this kind of stuff. And so it generates revenue for our city that isn't just on the tax base of the residents, it's tax bases of other cities. So you're pulling that money in, and then there's opportunities for work, like off-duty details, and we have a large mall, and we have a large arena. And not to give it away what city I work for, but we have a large arena that sports teams play at and all that. So it gives you the opportunity to make the extra money, so that you're not, if you are struggling, or if you need, extra money, you're not going out and looking for another job, or a moonlighting or anything like that. You're just doing that one same job.
yeah, there's
So
like
it's
actual
good.
opportunities for you. That's good.
Yeah.
Um, what what drew you? You get done with college. What drew you to going back to your? I guess, did you go back to the town you were from to work for? What drew you
Yeah.
to that?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a thing. Like when I was in college, I was in Central Florida, and there was a couple different opportunities. There's this one. There was this like almost more militaristic. Like, I mean, it's not like our police academies aren't some pseudo militaristic, but this one was very boot camp like, and they fed into Jacksonville Police Department. Um, Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and Orange County Sheriff's Office, and I think one other one. They fed into those 4 agencies, and it was very. You had to be a college graduate, and but it was a very prestigious, or
Oh,
it was a little elevated. I mean, you end up in the same freaking place. I don't think it's not like the military where you come out like a E3 or something like that when you're done with it. It's you come out, you get spit out the same chute, I think. But anyways, so I processed with that and was really looking at that, but and I was just dating a girl and she was moving back home to South Florida, and I was like, all right, because my other thing was going to be
All
like, all right,
right.
I'm going to go work Disney security after college. I'm going to work Disney security while I process with Orange County or somebody, and then I'm going to work and I'm going to stay in Orlando. Like that was going to be my thing for the rest of my life. But I followed a girl back, and I mean that honestly lasted maybe a month,
Oh,
and
oh,
and and then now I'm back here. I wasn't the apartment was done up there. All that was, I'd severed my ties. I'd moved home with a lady, or to be with a lady, and it just it didn't work out, but it worked out fine. Like I used to
it's
work retail, and I
it
just
sends us places, man. Like life
yeah
sends us places, and at first
yeah
you're like, why the fuck is this happening? But that I mean it's fine, because now
yeah
you're here. Obviously,
yeah.
it worked out.
Yeah, it all worked out fine. She I honestly think she was probably dating a guy back here and me the whole time. I think me following her home was probably like not a expected situation. So it was one of those like I need to find a reason to get rid of him, and him was me. So and she ended up marrying that guy anyway, or the guy that she was with. So but and he's a cop too, so but it's fine. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It all worked out for the best. I used to do I worked retail. I was able to, when I was in college, I worked for Old Navy. I worked there in high school and then was able to transfer back and forth, and that was always a good thing for like holiday breaks and summer breaks, is I
Yeah.
could come home and I could transfer back to my old store. So to work for a company that allows you to transfer back and forth for those for college kids is always a good. I found it beneficial because then I could still make make the extra money and stuff that I needed to eat and have fun and pay for some stuff, and also stay responsible and stay on a schedule with that. So it was good. So I did that for a while, and I was here for I was home for probably a year, and then and I put in applications. I put in application for the sheriff's office here, and I processed. And I was really like, I had friends that worked there, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'm a clean cut guy, wholesome, all American. There's going to be zero issues. And I argued, or I debated the guy in the hiring for he what did he say? I can't remember what started it, but he said something about Home Depot, and I was like, yeah, I don't really care so much for Home Depot, and my point was, and I made this clear to him, was that my father owns a tile company, and it's a good tile company. At the time it had 9 stores across the state of Florida, and it was my grandfather's company to start with, and so my dad. And I understood the quality of service that you're getting from that company versus a Home Depot where you just have a sales associate that might go to some
Maybe.
classes or learn a little bit, but the company is not invested in just tile. And that was kind of my thing. And I was really just trying to make a point to him. And one of the things that I wanted to prove by explaining all this was that I stand by my values. And no matter what this gentleman across the table is saying to me, I'm going to stand up to my values, whether it's the law or family values, that kind of thing. And when we were done, he was like, yeah, I didn't like what you had to say about Home Depot. And yeah, you're not going to end up passing this. And I was like, huh, all right. Well, that didn't work out. I guess I'm gonna have to rethink my strategy on the whole interview process there. But you know, again, it worked out fine. I applied to my current agency because at the time everybody else had to handwrite applications, and my current agency had a PDF on the internet. This was 2005, so there was a PDF, and I was like, I learned in college that typing is a lot better than handwriting, so I typed out a PDF and or filled it all out and turned it in and got hired pretty much
That's
like
fair.
a month later.
That's kind of fancy for 2005, like filling out
Yeah,
a PDF and everything. People probably think you're like high speed or something. Like
right.
this guy knows how to work.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
drop boxes and stuff. Yeah, I was able to hit print and I think sign the last page, and I was like, this is amazing, because what I learned in college was like when you're filling out these applications, take your time with your hand and your penmanship and everything like that. And we know to this day now our penmanship's probably worse than it ever was because we barely write anything, or at least I know I barely write anything by hand.
Yeah,
So
that's
it
a that's so cool. That like, so man, I'm like just running back through it now. It's like today, obviously, people hear a PDF and you're like, yeah, 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 like standard. Like no,
yeah.
like back then it was like that was super crazy to do. Like that was like, oh, it showed you had skills and stuff. You jump into this police department. You have a college degree at this point with criminal justice.
Hmm.
You obviously showed that, but then you are there any other skills you're bringing to the table, or was it just that and you're not knowing? Was there anyone in your family that told you about police work, or was it just like you kind of had that calling, knew you wanted to do it, and you were diving in blind?
Yeah, it really was. Like I said, my dad and my family was in construction tile business and stuff.
Yeah,
So I had that, and I had that Tommy boy mentality where I would go in and I'd work there, and I just didn't like I didn't earn this. This is my family name, and I think people that come up decide that they either go left or right in that sort of a family business. Do I do and maybe it's resentment. I don't think so, because I love my dad, I love my family, and what the business is. But it was one of those things where I was kind of like, I want to make something on my own and kind of go my own way. And I felt that law enforcement was a just a field that something was going to be different every day. It wasn't going to be showing up to that same office and doing the same thing all the time. It was going to have some action. It was going to have some downtimes and some uptimes, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, and back in college, I was in ROTC, senior ROTC, or college, university ROTC,
yeah,
and I enjoyed it for the military history. I did the drill. I did a little bit of PT. I didn't really enjoy waking up at 5 a.m. as a college student, even though I wasn't drinking and getting blasted every night or doing the typical college stuff. I like sleep. And so I came to the point in my second year where they were just really hounding me because you can't freeload for after your second year in the
yeah.
college
You got
or
to
in the
sign a
class.
contract. Yeah,
Yeah, you got a contract. So and go to basic. I think between your sophomore and junior year, usually for that, or at least in your senior year. But you were under contract, so I made the decision that I said, I'm gonna keep checking out this college thing, and because in my mind it was, all right, I'm in the military now, like, and I'm just going to college,
yes,
because I'm owned by somebody. So I kind of didn't want to sign on to that just yet, and keep playing the college games and exploring what college had to offer me. So, um, so I didn't re-up or I didn't do my third year for that, or didn't finish it out in college. But it was fun, and wrote some papers and did some military history and stuff, which was fun.
yeah. I'm a history major. I just finished my degree last year, and I love
Hmm.
military history, especially. It's so fun to hear about. But man, I can't imagine in college, especially when I went. It was I was the crazy one that was out all night doing dumb shit.
Hmm.
And I was not
Yeah.
showing. But especially ROTC, it's like I didn't do ROTC, but I would imagine the stress of not impending doom is the bad word for it, but it's like you
Pain.
you are, yeah, you're gonna go join the military after this, and it's like that's a great point to stop at and go, I don't think that's for me, because a lot of people get past where you were, and I met officers that go like, it was a way to pay the bills to get through college, but now they have to serve 8 to 10 years as an
Hmm.
officer. Like that is a huge contract to sign that these 18 to 20-year-old kids don't know what they're signing up for. Like that is a lot. So I'm glad you
Yeah,
were able
yeah.
to make that. Like I would never knock anyone, especially you went still to civil service. I
Hmm.
would never knock anyone for, hey, I don't think this is for me. Well, good on you. Like,
Yeah.
go figure out what you need to do, and that's fine. Like, for
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, I have a wide array of friends still that I know to this day from high school that, guys that were jumping with their National Guard recruiter out of airplanes when they turned 18 as seniors in high school because, they're getting going and so I had a lot of guys that I had guys from my school that did that went to the military academies, either West Point or even places like Citadel, and stuff. And then, and then guys that had enlisted, um, and went. They were like one of my buddies did the guard, and he went special forces, and broke his tailbone in freaking special forces school, and uh, but ended up managing through it, and he did some cool stuff. And I remember like me being in college and seeing his pictures when some of us would get in. Granted, this is 2003, 2004, so we're not getting it's not you're not getting cell phone pictures. You're getting some digital camera that's probably over there that he uploaded to a computer and then had to send it over like
Took 7 days to get from there to here.
yeah,
Like,
56K
yeah,
over a
yeah.
satellite. Now that but my buddy was, we called him Haji Mike because he was embedded, or he had he had a full Haji beard, and
Oh yeah.
he had an AK, and he was out there, and so it was special forces community and stuff. So it was awesome. And it just turns out that he came back here, and I was in my last week of the police academy, and he was walking in his suit, to come in for the first week of the police academy.
Yeah.
So we work in two neighboring jurisdictions. So I'll see him occasionally. They took him on to SWAT like before he got off probation. He was fast tracked for all that stuff. And so
Yeah.
now he's in their training unit and everything. So, but he's got a skill set. So he's got a skill set that he brings to the agency, and can pull that with training and all kinds of stuff. So it's good. But yeah, I mean, we all still stay in touch, and I have a high amount of respect for all you guys that have been in or are still in. And love hearing the stories, and talking to guys. And it's nice knowing that we all kind of share that same sort of, like you were saying, that same sort of calling to to a higher purpose, and a service, to America, to our communities, and all that. It's fun.
I think it's super cool too how um military guys, we all worship, not we all. I don't want to generalize too much, but a lot of us love law enforcement and firefighters. We're like, that's some scary shit to do. Like, go in and
Hmm.
do that. And then law enforcement firefighters like, that's some scary shit to do, is go overseas or do whatever. And like, it's
Yeah.
just such a fun back and forth. But it's a mutual, while shitting on each other, it's a mutual respect, and it's super fun, and I love that aspect. What I want to get back on track with you, Justin. Like,
Okay.
you're like you jump into the police force. You start up, I guess you start out as like a beat cop, I guess. Can you walk me
Yeah.
through that, kind of how it
Yeah,
goes?
yeah. You usually have to at least go through probation. You got to get off probation, which is a year. And some specialized units, they want, obviously like a detective. Unless you're coming from somewhere else with some kind of experience, you should probably have several years. Um, the city I work for isn't too crazy or super busy where we're always call to call to call to call crazy. So it might take a little bit of time to get some experience in a broad range of calls or scenarios. Um, but I did kind of, you mentioned it before with maybe like what like Gen Z kind of thinks, but it's like the 5 year itch. So for me, I got it where I did road patrol for the first 5 years of my career, and I worked afternoon shift, which was great because you don't have to live by an alarm clock. You go to bed whenever you feel like going to bed. It could be like I got off at midnight, so I could go to bed at 1, 2, 3, and then I didn't have to have an alarm clock wake me up because then I'd sleep and I didn't have to be at work until 1:45. So I'd just wake up at 10 or 11, you know? And so like that was nice to be able to not live by an alarm clock. And then my department did away with the 3 shifts or 3 different time shifts, and they went to 11 and a half hours. So we just went to an Alpha Bravo. And so I went to midnights and worked midnights for a couple years. It was fun. It's always fun. There's always a lot of downtime. Thankfully, Netflix was just coming around. I started midnights with a TV that had like a little TV that had like rabbit ears or antennas, or like an antenna that I could suction cup to the roof of my police car and like watch over the air TV.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Netflix came around and an iPhone and stuff and streaming on the iPhone. So then I could watch Netflix and stuff. So that was a good way to pass some time if, through the wee hours of the morning, if there was nothing going on in the city. But, so I did that, and then I was able to, just through connections, and then we got this mayor before the like our city had we have 13 schools in our city, and we have 5 elementary schools, and so those elementary schools we had, or no, I'm sorry, we have 8 elementary schools. And so what they had done was the one chief had cut half of those, and then the SRO would bounce around, the school resource officer would bounce
Oh,
between
yeah.
2 schools. So he shared 2 schools. And so this mayor this guy that was running for mayor at the time, one of his platforms was like, I'm going to put a cop in every school. And this was 2009, 2010. So for us in South Florida, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting is a benchmark for when we talk about schools a lot of times. But this was even pre that. So pre our local experience with a school shooter type situation. Obviously the world had dealt with them and we'd seen them around in the world, but there wasn't, it wasn't local, so you don't feel it as much. So this guy had said that, and I helped with his campaign and everything like that. And so it's a lot of times it's good to make connections. And so the lieutenant of that unit called me after and was like, hey man, would you be interested in being a school resource officer? And it gets bagged on a lot on social media. My boy
Yeah, I
Mike
hear a lot of.
Copville loves to talk
Oh,
trash. But whatever, dude. I don't care, man. I did 6 years in the schools, a couple 5 years in the elementary school, and then like a year and a half in the high school.
li-
Um,
listen, man. Can I just say something real quick to that? Because I listen to Mike a lot. Like I like Mike.
yeah,
Uh, my school, like I grew up in mid Missouri. I don't know a lot of our schools that had a school resource officer, like especially when I went there. And then when they did, it's usually a rent. Like our county has probably less than 20 cops in it, and or 20 deputies in it, and they're barely getting the attention. But I think it's important to have that. It's just
yeah,
truly important, regardless of if you want to shit on it and they're not busting heads every day. At least there's somebody there, and it's important. So, fuck anyone who says that. Like I think
yeah.
it's truly important.
It's a discredit when there's officers that are lazy, are sloppy. Before I was in it, it was the SRO, the sorry road officer. Like that joke was made.
Oh man.
And then I learned through being with it that we've got I know across the country you might have different levels of schools, but we have elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools in Florida. And so the way I explain to people is like, I'm not at the elementary school for the kids. Like, yeah, I'm there for the kids and stuff like that, but they're not the problem. It's the parents that are the problem. I'm there because these are uh, new parents, possibly new parents, because they have young kids. They're the parents are just figuring out that they don't love each other sometimes. They're getting restraining orders against each other. They're having custody battles for possibly the first time. So these are all new legal aspects that are happening in home life that these kids are either having to deal with at school, but then their parents are sometimes pulling that over and bleeding it into the school. So you've got, you know, the 60-year-old front desk clerk that's now got to deal with a parent who's coming in who potentially has a restraining order and they're not allowed to pick up the kid, or X, Y, and Z. We could name the gamut of problems.
No, it's
And so,
those are great points though.
yeah, and so I was always my office was right next to the front door, or the front office of the school, and so I was always a radio call away. Hey, my number was number 4. Hey, number 4, can you come over to the front office? Like, or they would always bring if a parent came in and said, hey, this is my temporary injunction. We had a domestic and he got arrested. This is a temporary injunction. So I'd read it. I'd be like the legal advisor, the pseudo legal advisor for the school, and explain to them, hey, this is it. And then, dude, they keep a binder of all those things. So it's like there's that much of it in these schools that, a school of 900 elementary school kids, that there's that many parents, there's enough to have a binder of who's not allowed to pick up the kid because there's a restraining order. So so that's one of the things. And then I mean, we can talk obviously for this stuff you see in the news. Sandy Hook was elementary school and stuff. So there's those reasons. And then I was there also because with 900 to 1,000 students, you're going to have traffic issues. So I would deal with the traffic issues and trying to, community police it up and figure out how to get all these kids in safely and quickly so that people aren't all pissed off going to work later, after dropping their kid off at school. So there was a lot of community policing being done, with what I was doing there. And then the opportunity came in the high school, and it's not like something that I'm rushing to go to a high school that's semi in the ghetto and, has all kinds of problems and stuff like that. And at the time there was one officer that works there. So I'm not one to turn down a fight or turn down when the sergeant calls and says, hey, do you want it? I'm just going to say yes. I'm not going to say, oh, check with everybody else first. I'm just going to go, yeah, sure, I'll take it, dude. Like, YOLO, let's go. And so I went over there and actually I enjoyed it because you're dealing with kids that are real people. When I was in the elementary school, these are little kids that somebody stole my eraser and I don't know how to open up my lunchbox, or I don't know how to open up my milk carton. And that's fun, but it's not police work and it's not like mentoring and working with people. Whereas these high school kids, like, aside from real crimes are happening and real fights, and they're all growing up and they're almost your size, or they're bigger than you, they're coming into real adult problems, and they're coming into my office like, I'm not your guidance counselor, but all right, I'm going to listen to you, and I'll try and help you figure it out. And I always would, because of my interest in the military and my love for the military, I would always, when the recruiters were there, I'd always sit there and I'd bullshit with them for a while, because I'm like, well, first things first, if something goes down, I want to know these guys, because these guys shouldn't be afraid to run into a fire, just like I'm not afraid to run into fire. And so if I'm getting my ass handed to me, I'm hoping, first sergeant, that you're going to walk over here and help me get that kid off of me if I'm getting my ass handed to me. So I always made good friends with all of them, especially the Marines. But so I always took their cards, and I always kept their cards in my drawer in my desk. And when these kids would come in, I had kids that would come in, they'd be like 18 years old and they're crying, going, I graduate next month and I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I go, it's cool. You don't have to know. Nobody expects you to know. And they're like, maybe I'll just be a police officer. And I'm like, no, you will not be a police officer. I don't want somebody who's in an office crying about not knowing what they want to do in their life, thinking they're going to be a police officer in 2 weeks. And I'd go, hey, here's a couple business cards. Why don't you call these guys and see if these fellas can help you get your life in order? But I mean, tell me, I mean, am I wrong to say that
here's the thing. The Army is a great place for people who, because I flunked out of college. I tried to get back in, was unsuccessful because like we can relate on that. Terrible with money. I'm
Hmm.
terrible with it. I had a lot of trouble with it. Um, I'm working in these shit jobs, and again, that question comes up. I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know
Yeah.
I'm better than where I'm at, but I know I don't know where I should go. What does the army do? It provides direction for people.
Yep.
You know what the cop, like firefighter, law enforcement doesn't do? It doesn't provide direction, really. I wouldn't say that. I would say you guys provide. If you have your shit in line, we can use you.
Yeah.
The thing I've heard for a lot of armed people is it goes most people the you need the army when you
Hmm.
join, and then eventually you hit a point in your life, whether it's 4 years, 10 years, or 20 years, the army don't need you, or you don't need the army needs you.
Hmm.
So you hit that point. You guys aren't like that. You guys, it can flip a script because people want to join that so much, and it's such a smaller community. You guys aren't providing like options for people. It's like you're either gonna get with the program, like and figure like not figure it out, get this going, or you're gone. So I definitely
Well,
agree with that.
yeah, I
Show
mean,
people
and not to diminish the army, but like to that point, like you can exist as a private just getting told what to do. Like
that's
go
what I
over
did
here,
for 3 years.
do
It was great.
do
It,
this, you know, do
yeah,
this. Okay, how do I do it? Do this. This is how you do it. All right, great. Ching, ching, you know, whatever. Like moving it
I
along. And
I
then you can develop those skills to think on your own and you'll eventually excel and grow up. Whereas police work, you get thrown out there after you get off field training, and now you're having to tell people because that statute book is not going to tell you how every call is supposed to be handled. It's going to give you the laws, and unless you're someone autistic and you can just repeat off the law and know this is all, nope, you're going to jail, boom, 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 RoboCop, off I go. That's no, we don't want those, and you can't have those. So you have to sit there and you have to be able to think on your feet, develop a plan while listening to somebody, think of 3 or 4 different exits, think of how you're going to kill this person if you have to, think of how you're going to take all this kind of stuff. So if you can't, if you don't know what you want to do in your life, and then all of a sudden you're going to thrust yourself and you somehow make it through uh, um, you know uh, um, the police academy and hiring and field training, somehow you squeak your way through, you're going to get made an example of once you get out on the road, because you're going to get punked and you're going to get destroyed, and you're probably going to get fired, or end up on social media or end up on the news and stuff. And it's like, no, like, and so that's what I would tell kids and people, especially when I started working in the community and everything with the police department. I'd tell people like, no, I want you to go get a job. Like I want you to go be an employee, go work for someone, go be a manager somewhere. Please go get a management job doing something, telling other people what to do in your career field, and then come over here and become a police officer. So, which is why we laugh and we tell people, oh, don't do criminal justice. It's useless. I mean, okay, what did it get me? It got me an interesting college career where I got to see some interesting stuff. I got to go on tours of jails and learn about crime and then history as we love. But all it really got me was an extra whatever $45 a check because I have a bachelor's degree. So over the course of 20 years, it's a good amount of money. But that's really what it got me, because there's nothing really that I think I learned in college in criminal justice that I really should apply. Uh, I like to pull out thought nuggets sometimes from college. So it really was just experience that I gained. And that's what I tell people college is just experience in life. Like I didn't live at home. I lived on my own. I had to wash my own ass. I had to wash my own clothes. I had to make my own meals. Yeah, I ate a lot of ramen. I ate ramen as pasta. I'd get Prego spaghetti sauce and I'd put ramen noodles without the sugar, without the packet, and I'd make spaghetti. Like, woo, great. You adapt. But George Foreman grills, all that kind of stuff. But so that's really what college was for me, was just gaining life experience and how to be a human.
Yeah, I tell everybody this now because I've been in for 10 years, almost 11. So I'm like, I have a little bit of experience, but I go, my first 3 years of the Army were so fun because all
Mm.
you do is come in and you get told what to do and you do
Hmm.
it and that's it. And then you go home
Yeah.
and you don't think about nothing. You go,
Yeah.
oh, it's cool. I'm done with work. Now, when you become an NCO, you get to
Yeah.
do drill sergeant, you get to do all these other things. Um, you're meant to be everybody call it's a hot word in the Army, but it's called self-starter. And I'm sure you guys have
Okay.
heard, and they say self-starter, which means you basically just do implied tasks. Like you get things
Yeah.
done that are already supposed to be getting done, but
Yeah.
you know to get them done. I think that is what shows management, or to your point with cops, like maybe firefighter, I don't know, but especially cops, you got to be a critical thinker. You got to be able to come out there and have solutions that are not just, well, I need to go read a book first, or I need to go ask somebody. No, you need to come up with the solution because it is make or break at this point, whether it's your life or somebody else's life or something. Like that's what you got to get through. And um I feel that a lot in this day and age where people maybe don't understand that, where you got to be able to figure out shit and not just beg for answers. You got to, like, I'll tell you the why. I'll tell you
Yeah.
the why all day, but you got to be able to come up with the how do I get this done?
Yeah,
Like,
I call it find work. And that's what I do, especially, when the scene's like cooling off or whatever. And if I show up, it's like you find work. I can look at the field and figure out where the holes need to be plugged, and I'm just gonna go do it. And I'm
yeah,
gonna let somebody tell me, hey, don't do that. All right, cool. What do you want me to do then? Like I don't I
I
don't
like that.
really I don't like the like guy showing up and it's I don't want to sound bad saying it, but I don't like the guy showing up go, "Hey, what do you need me to do, bro?" Because usually an on-scene commander or whatever, they're like fucking their heads going a million miles a minute or whatever. I need you to show up on scene, scan and go, hole needs to be plugged. I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go take that hole, or I'm going to go do this or whatever. Like I pulled up on something as benign as a traffic crash, middle of an intersection, big intersection, traffic light, all this kind of stuff, crash in it. The service aide had one of the sets of turn lanes blocked with her car. Cool, doing a good job. I show up. There's a fire engine, a rescue truck, kind of building the wall around the crash so that cars aren't flying into it. And then we've got two officers that are also there on scene. So what a service aide does for us is they do our crash investigations. They can handle getting everybody's information, writing it up, doing all that kind of stuff. When I look at this major intersection that we have, as I show up, I'm looking at them going, these cars are all on free will. They're going to hit one of us or hit a firefighter. So I pull up and I'm looking at the two officers that are there just kind of bebopping around, like helping people get their crap out of the car. And it's like, no, 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 that's not what you need to do. You need to get your cars out there. And so at that same time, a guy that I've come up with that's a battalion chief now, he pulls up in his unmarked and he screams. He's like, "Hey, can we get some traffic direction?" And I just look at him and I go, "I got it." And he looked at me and he was like, made eye contact with me. He's like, "All right, Justin's there. I know. My bad. I didn't know you were there, dude." And so because I was just there fixing everybody, telling them, "Hey, you go over there, you get that north side of the road, shut that down, make the cars turn away. That way these fire trucks that are $1 million don't get hit, or one of us gets plowed by some idiot that's on their cell phone or whatever." And then you go over there, and it took me a little while to get this one guy like unwound. Like he just didn't know how to position his car. I'm like, dude, that thing is a billboard. All you got to do is set it up the correct way and cars will eventually. I go, if people are still almost hitting your car, you're not doing it right, dude. So I'm getting into the weeds on
No, I
on
like that
on
though. That's fun.
cop
Yeah.
jargon, but
No,
but
I
I was
like
I was field marshaling stuff, moving stuff around, and then there we go, and I
controlling
go,
the
all
scene,
right.
dude. You're
Yeah.
doing that next level job that
Yeah.
pe- some people truly aren't designed to be a leader. I truly
Yeah.
think that, and it's like it's no knock on anyone at all, but like you got to have a leader out there. You got to have
Yeah.
someone telling people what to do.
Yeah, and we'll get back. We can circle back to that in a little bit. Where if we get to the regrets portion of the career,
Oh, sure.
but yeah, I mean, as a like as a 20-year guy, it's like I really, in the last like 5 years or so I got I'm like fast forwarding a little bit, but it's like
Yeah.
you really just it's awesome when you really can just see and like I'm a movie guy, so like when sometimes in movies like the main character sort of like gets what's going on, or I think even Neo in the Matrix did it once he finally figured out kung fu, and it's like he's not getting his ass kicked, and all of a sudden he's just like, I'm gonna try and fit it in the screen, he's just like slow. He's just, all
Yeah.
right, I have figured. That's how I feel, knock on wood, a lot of times nowadays at work, is the world is slowing down for me and I'm seeing it all, and I all my senses are operating correctly, and I'm not that new guy who's inundated with sensory overload because they don't understand what's going on. Like I feel like I understand what's going on, and I think that's a good place to be. Like I think it's a good place to be when you can recognize it. So it feels good.
Hey guys, quick break for the show. Let's talk about emergencies. You never know when life's going to throw you a curveball, and then that's where this new brand called JumpMedic comes in. Whether you're hiking on the ground, riding around a Humvee, first aid kits they're selling are like a tank in a bag. They're rugged, organized, ready when you need them. I've got one myself, and let me tell you, the peace of mind fits perfectly in the trunk of your car. Head on over to jumpmedic.com. A discount code will be coming out soon. Stay safe out there. Let's get back to it.
It kind of sucks though, because you're at your retirement mark now, so you really
Yeah,
can't displace that to anyone else. But I mean, I don't want to knock that, but I'm like, that does suck when you get to that level. Like
yeah.
I experienced that a little bit. I did drill sergeant, and the problem with drill sergeant is you only do it for 2 years, 3 years if you volunteer, and I did 3 years.
Hmm.
And my third year, I felt it. I was like, I know almost everything you should do at this point. And I was like that, like what you're talking about, okay, this
Yeah,
happened, boom, 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 boom.
yeah,
And I get there, but then I go, I can't, I'm leaving. I can
yeah,
only do
yeah,
so much like that.
yeah,
So that I get that. What,
yeah,
so you're doing your SRO time. I'll bring it.
yeah,
I'll bring it all back. It's fine. We're
yeah.
doing
No, it's
SRO
good.
time. We do about 6 years of that. What did you have a high point of that or a low point of that, or what made you get out? What, or I don't know if it
Well,
made you get
so
out, or how's that work?
the high school was amazing. I was amazing. Like I said, the mentorship stuff was cool, but I was also a glorified bouncer. Like every day there was two or three uh, fights, boys and girls. Like just fights. I was a glorified bouncer. I'm not afraid to go hands on and jump into those mix and stuff. I used to get from some of the other kids or some of my little rats and snitches. I'd get the videos of me breaking up fights, and I'd get like different angles. So back to the Matrix, I was going to make like a video of me like going around almost of all the cameras that I had angles of me breaking up fights and throwing kids in cuffs and stuff. And they always knew that if I was there and I broke it up and you pulled away from me, you were going to jail. But if I broke it up and I was able to toss you to an administrator or security staff and you participated in the removal of the fighting, then you just got handled administratively. But if you pulled away from me, you were going to jail. So that was the way I handled it, and they knew, and I've always enjoyed because I would work sometimes in nightclubs, or like I would work a pool hall as like off duty detail at night, because I love the social aspect of it, but I also love reading people, and I love reading body language and observing body language. So in a school of 2,000 kids, when you see groups of heads all turning in a certain direction, just like you would at a baseball game or a football game, when you're watching the game and you just see a lot of crowd heads moving over, you're like, oh, there's a fight over there.
Yeah.
So you could, and then when they're all communicating through text messages and cell phones and stuff,
Yeah.
so they're doing it semi covertly, and you just start to see groups of them getting up and moving off of lunch tables and stuff. It's like, all right, I'm gonna radio over and to my other defender, like so that the safety can pick this person up, kind of thing, because they're moving over trying to get into a fight or jump somebody or steal something or whatever. And so I always found that fun. And enjoyable. And I still do it to this day because we still get called out to that school as they dismiss and they go out into the streets, and the kids just keep recycling, and they don't realize that their parents 10 years ago did the exact same thing that they did, and did the same mannerisms and the same tells and all the same cues that you could find that to use as long as you knew how to read them. But an opportunity came up for I've always been big into the social media, the communication. So an opportunity came up in our community affairs, so public information office, social media, and then community resource officer. So go out to the homeowners associations, have conversations about crime prevention, listen to their bitches, moans, groans, all those kind of things.
I think that lady that was on, I don't know if you heard it, Anti-Hero, that female cop that was on with you guys at CC Live.
Yeah.
She did that
Yeah.
for a
Heather.
while. Heather, she was talking about that. How it's like
Yeah.
you kind of go out and you're always at the meetings, you hear, and it does suck. You kind of hear all the complaints, but
Mhm.
it's a necessary evil,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So and I found, and I'm a communicator. I mean, hell, what am I doing right now? I'm a communicator. I like talking, and it's another one of those, like you said, with the millennials or whoever, the 5 year thing. So I had 5 years on the road, and then I did 5+, so about 6.5 years in the schools. Um, and I ended up coming out just a month before Stoneman Douglas in Broward County. So I was out in January, and then it happened in February,
Oh,
which changed a lot of what we do in the school. Not a lot of what we do, but like for the high school, for me, it would have added another officer, which would have been great to have a second officer to share the caseload of calls or cases, and then also, split some of the arrests and all that kind of stuff. And then just have a backup with a gun rather than, making sure that some of the administrators were on the page. So I was out of the school when that happened, and but my unit also subbed in if a school resource officer was out sick or one of their kids was sick and they had to stay home. Our unit went into the school, so I was already overly prepared for that job and doing it. And those guys now are mini SWAT teams. They have my whole department has short barrel rifles, but they were some of the first ones to go with short barrel rifles. They're
wow.
some of the first ones to get trained in the red dot systems. So our department's going to eventually roll out red dots to everybody. They already have red dots, so they and on teacher planning days, whatever, they bring them into our range and they run them through drills. They run them through these guys they're consistently stop the bleed trainings. They're as trained as you would hope that they could be, if not more, for a bad scenario.
Does that,
Um,
sorry, real quick, does that make you sad sometimes, like the school system where we have to be that trained for it though?
it is. I mean, it is sad, and I mean that's a big topic. And it's an unfortunate thing for America, and because I feel like it's a uniquely American problem. Not to pull on either side of the political aisle, but it's I feel like it's a uniquely American thing. Although we don't necessarily hear what everybody else does. Everybody wants to know our news. We don't get anybody else's news really. They in Africa they have active shooters at malls and stuff like that. But I mean it's. Yeah, or in England, you got active killers with
No,
knives running
the
around
knife,
bridges.
the knife stuff in England is insane.
Yeah.
I get really frustrated when I hear about all this stuff. In the U.S., not everyone. Again, I did generality, but a lot of
Yeah.
people complain about, America is so bad about all this stuff, and I'm like, I was in Afghanistan in 2018, 2019. People are complaining about, we got a brief, and it happens every week. Women getting beheaded for trying to
Hmm.
teach, you know, if the worst thing we have is a school shooter every couple years, like I get it, that's terrible travesty to the parents, like and the children
Yeah.
and everything. But we're not the worst. Like, quit saying that. There is so
Yeah.
much worse shit going on everywhere. You're talking about Africa. There's so much shit bad happening there. Asia, we don't even
Insane.
hear about half the stuff because they have no network there. There's no
Yeah.
reporters, no nothing. There's terrible things happening. Europe has a bunch of shit going on that nobody even reports on. It's there and it's reported on, but it does not make it over here because it's not
Yeah.
national news.
No, I mean, I'm going Oktoberfest in September, and I'm like, bro, I'm like, they love to run people over at festivals in Germany, apparently, like these Christmas festivals and stuff, and so I know some German police officers, and I'm gonna definitely talk to them before I go there, and I'm gonna be doing some rotations on my head and like looking, all right, where do we have ballards? Do we have devices to stop vehicles? Like Oktoberfest is in a large festival ground, so it's not a neighborhood street like a Christmas market, but
Oh, okay.
it's it, it's you got to be realistic everywhere you go. You just can't live in blissful ignorance, and that unfortunately is what we do as Americans because we are so safe. We don't really have to think about it
You know why we're
that
safe?
bad.
Because you know why we're safe? Because the goddamn
Yeah.
police department, because the
Yeah.
fire department, because the military. We're
Yeah.
that safe, and everyone wants to complain about it, saying they're not doing their job. We
Hmm.
are that safe. I'll
Yeah.
get
No, no.
fucked.
Hey, jump on the
Yeah.
soapbox, man. Like,
No, I can't fucking stand when people complain about that because I'm like, you have no idea what these other countries are dealing with. Like, women aren't allowed to do certain shit. Men and people in general can't walk down certain streets, and it's enforced by cops. It All this stuff is enforced, whereas we're only enforcing what you can't do. They're enforcing what you can do. Like
hmm
it,
yeah.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I
And a lot of it's in those places based on religion. And that's one of the things that
true.
people just can't understand here, laws based on religion, and I know there's a few things nowadays that might squeak through or might become religious based, when it comes to laws, but it's still by no means,
No,
what you see in a lot of other countries.
no, because we're still at the very core of it. We're based on a constitution.
Hmm.
Regardless of what anyone
Yeah.
says, there's nothing going on that isn't constitutional, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some people, that's where people differ, right? They think we're infringing upon it or not infringing upon it, like blah blah blah. These other countries, like, they're based upon a king. Where my commander always says it, we're the only country in the world, and I don't know if it's true or not actually, but he says we're the only country that doesn't swear an allegiance to a king, a religion, or a monarch, or a family, right? Which you look around the world, I'm pretty sure that's pretty close to accurate.
Yeah, I think I've heard something very similar to that, but that there is no true head of country, other than the president, which a lot of countries still have a president or a prime minister and a king and a monarch,
Yeah,
because we're that experiment that started over 200 years ago, and is still going strong, to no matter what people are gonna, call it or say or challenge it. And when we see so much more dissent or challenges to it because of social media and the availability of all of this, of what you and I are doing right now, to be able to have a conversation and then bring everybody into it, give it to the entire world to listen
yeah.
to. And it's just two people's opinions. A lot of it might be fact, but some of it's opinion. And then just, there's been a lot of information overload over the years. I feel like, when I hear Joe Rogan say this, and I'm younger than Joe Rogan, but a little bit older than you, and I've come through the, payphones, pagers, cell phones, iPhone, and then boom, is just gone. And I feel for young people today, because I know at least I wasn't inundated with all of it at a young age. I can't believe the frying of our brains that happens from all of this. and I don't have a solution for it by any means. But I know that when adults have a hard time with it, the amount of information, the inundating of information and tasks and all this kind of stuff, to put it on kids, it's driving them crazy. So, I think that's where we're probably seeing some of this mental health change in the world. I would attribute some of it to that too.
Yeah,
Anyway, we're going down a
no,
whole
we
nother
went.
rabbit hole.
Yeah, read Sebastian Younger Tribe. No,
Yeah.
there's a whole thing about it. Yeah,
But
I'll
yeah,
go
so
back to it. Yeah, you got
but
Justin. You did.
yeah. Yeah, so I did my stint in the community affairs basically. I loved the public information office side of it, dealing with the media because my thought was that I know how tormenting the media can be to our officers when you're out there on the front lines and you're dealing with stuff and you're reading or hearing stuff on the news, or people are saying, "Hey, I saw you guys did this." So a lot of what I tried to do, is I, I've always wanted to I like getting jobs done quick. Like if I get an assignment, I want to try and get it done as fast as I can. Like it becomes priority and I put other stuff on a back burner and I get it done. So for me, I felt that when the media would come to me with a question, I didn't want to put it on the back burner because I know what they're going to do is they're going to make stuff up if they
And they're
can't
gonna
find
burn
the
it.
answer, or they're
Yeah,
going to find it from a different source. And I want that source to be me. I want that source. If it's a question about my police department, I want the source to be the the guy who's supposed to tell you, not some politician that decides to tell you because they heard through a chief or a commander or somebody, or they heard through a neighbor, and then the news runs with it and it's not entirely true. So I worked really hard to try and mold those messages and shape them and get them out. A lot of people will say, "Oh, no news, just don't even talk to them, stonewall them, don't talk to them." I'm telling you, they're going to make it up if they don't get the answer. And the thing is you need them more than you think you do when it comes time to put out some information, and you need them to pick the phone up, or you need them to put your story up first or up on the front page, or first at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whenever the news cycle comes on. And you want them to maybe give you a fair amount of time or a fair, um, shake on a story when you want them to put something out. So you got to give them food. You got to feed the beast when you have the opportunity to do it when they want something. And so I would, one hand washes the other, all these little cliches that I can say. Um, and a lot of them respected me for that, and they appreciated me. They'd call me with some weird stuff and they'd be like, "Justin, just tell me what's up." And I'm like, "Bro, it's not a story." And they'd go, "All right, cool." And they just hang up. They wouldn't press. They wouldn't send an email to my chief. Justin stonewalling me. He's not telling me. Like, we don't believe him. They all knew that I was telling them what's up. And so I really enjoyed that, and it was fun because hey, I get to see myself on the news sometimes. I get to practice public speaking. And so I feel like this job that I'm doing now with the podcast stuff is a bit of public speaking. And I learned a bit of the reporter without being a journalist. And now I'm kind of a journalist. So there's aspects that I gained from that. I mean, I even have to this day, because I'm not in that job, I have a friend whose husband was killed in the line of duty, riding a motorcycle. He freaking palm tree. Like I'm going to tell this story because it's going to go on the news soon, and I'm facilitating it. He's riding his motorcycle back to the station to do whatever, and we have royal palms, huge tall palm trees that have these 15-20 pound palm fronds that fall down, and the husk is big.
yeah.
It fell down on a single lane road that he was riding down, and it caused him to get launched off of his motorcycle, and he died. It killed him. And so it just so turns out that one of our canine officers, he owns a company, and shameless plug, I'm not getting anything from him. It's called Troy Belt. I don't know how he created it. I don't know that side of the story, but it's a canvas strap that lawn companies go up in a bucket truck and put around these palm trees
To collect it or
to
whatever.
hold it and then when you see the frond start dying, then you tend to it. You take the thing off, you pull the frond off, and then you put it back on. And so he's got this company and this brand. And so I said, hey, Shark Tank, we've got a problem and a solution. Let's try
Yes.
to put them together. And then in the middle, the creamy center can be this story of a widow and a police officer who lost his life really due to that tree. And so he hit me up and he's like, hey, can Sylvia wants to try and get this on the news. She got the city to approve all these,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these straps. I'm donating them, so everybody's got to get their hand in the pot. And so I'm able to now take my knowledge of this is how you get an abstract written and you give it to the news so that they look at it, because they get all kinds of stories. And I'm going to get this one on the news. First
Yeah.
off, because the news knows me when I reach out to them, but I'm going to have the abstract written properly so that they almost have to do no work. They could pretty much just go and read it on the news right there. But
Yeah,
I'm going to list all the criteria, all the things, all the people's names that they need to put, all the camera shots that they might need to go, where do they need to go, how do they get in contact. So I'm putting all that stuff together. And it's not my job, but I love doing
no,
that, and I
yeah,
find it interesting, and it serves a purpose. It gets a good story out. It's one story. It'll air one time, two times maybe, but I think it'll get the message out. Continuing to say Charlie's name, who died in the line of duty, and then kind of pushing this message for his widow and that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
it's cool, and then it kind of keeps me attached to that media side of the house, which was kind of fun.
I, yeah, I have a couple questions about the media stuff, but I think what you just did with that, with pushing that message, and it's for a good purpose. That's what we need in those type of jobs, right? That's
Hmm.
what you want to have, somebody out there that's getting it out there for the right reasons. So
Yeah.
I,
Oh,
I gotta,
I have another story about that.
I,
But you can ask your question first, though.
no, I take a quick break. I gotta take a quick break, and I'll
Okay.
be right back to this. Okay.
Okay. Oh, nice. A Joe Rogan piss break. I like it.
Bro, I don't get how guys do it. I do kind of longer form, I guess, because
Yeah.
a lot of my stuff has been turning into like hour to 2 hours, which
Yeah.
I love because I love talking to people. But man, I gotta piss like
Yeah.
to the hour. Like I'm learning it now. My hour is my mark, and I'm like, you'll be telling a story, and I'm like, holy fuck, he died. Like,
Yeah.
but God, I gotta piss.
I
Fuck.
cut like when I'm in person, I cut commercials in. Like I say, like, all right, and we'll be back right after this break because I've got commercials that I can put in the
Oh,
edit.
yeah.
During these streaming ones, it's a little harder because on StreamYard I have them queued up and I just hit the button and they just play. So and
Wow.
and instead of me having to go back in and like you're gonna probably go back in and cut this and
I'll
cut that
splice it. Yeah.
and then do that. They're already like baked into it now, like where I can run two different commercials and just go, like when I hit record on StreamYard, I have it so it plays my intro. I hit record and it just starts playing, and then
Oh
and then
wow.
the screen comes back and then here we are. Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the donut shop. So
But does it
StreamYard does.
is it because it's streaming live or how's that work?
No, I do this. I don't do like
Okay.
a live stream. It's just
Yeah.
called StreamYard. But just like this, you can stream it if you wanted to, but I'm just doing a local recording and then it uploads to
Yeah.
the cloud and all
But it
that.
automatically plays that intro ad break and all that stuff.
Yeah, the whole right panel, I don't know what you get to see. The whole panel on the right side of the screen has you can do all this stuff. Like I can throw up like little banners on the bottom. So like if you had a website and you're like, "Oh yeah, my website." I just hit the button just like you would on
And it comes
ESPN or a
across.
newscast, and it just crawls across the bottom. It says the website, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
it has like a very um newscast professional thing that I can do, which just
I'm
adds
gonna need
more
to
to the
look at
brain
that.
power,
Yeah.
you know.
I need to look at that then. I've heard a lot of people use StreamYard. Riverside has been really good for the
Yeah.
exports, especially like for editing and for the
Yeah.
quality that's coming out. It's really good, but I hear a lot of people say StreamYard's better for editability and throwing that type of stuff in. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. So, I mean, they're kind of the same thing. It's just little bells and whistles. It's probably better for a stream because then like you can put up like on streams like you can do like um if somebody's like makes a comment in the comments section because they're like logged into YouTube, if you can pump it up and you can put it up onto the main screen and do all that kind of stuff. Like so it's more streamer related type stuff
Yeah.
that has like live interaction
Huh.
fun stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well,
well, so we'll get back into it,
yeah,
or
and
whatever.
I hope you're having a good time. I just always
Yeah,
like
no,
to
it's
make sure
fun.
that if you're doing
It's
okay.
fun.
Okay.
Like I said, imposter syndrome. You never feel like you're interesting or whatever. But whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just telling story, just telling the story, and
Just telling
somebody
stories, brother.
you can never estimate what people find interesting or not. Some people might want you to be argumentative and crazy, and some people might just want to hear a chill story and why you made the decisions that you made, and it might relate to somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
but yeah, you said you had a couple questions about the media stuff, and
yeah. So
then and then
I want to jump back in with that. The media was so interesting because, like you said, you were able to not in I wouldn't say influence necessarily. You saw this like type of issue and stuff with your friend that passed away,
mhm.
and how is that tackling those? Is that mentally tasking though when you have to go up against these stories that you're either upset about, maybe like maybe you're not showing that to them, but you're upset about, or you know it's a rough one to tackle. How's that go for you?
I mean, I worked. I probably can't really talk about it because I actually think the trial started last Friday. One of these cases, but it was one of our department's largest cases, and it was bad. It was really big in the media worldwide, and there was a lot to. You could go both ways on an argument. I could argue you both ways very easily on both scenarios and or both sides of it. And it wasn't even so much. It was 75% our officers and really only 25% the individual in the public that they were dealing with. The problem was mostly between the two of them, and so it's a tough thing. And one of my biggest things is, like I said before, with the media is I really want to make sure that our officers on the front lines are feeling the least pressure, least pain from what they're seeing. But ultimately I've got to go by what the chief wants to say because I work for him or her, depending on who the chief is. But at the time, it was a him, and he's the ultimate decision maker, and I can only advise him as best I can with what I think needs to go out and how it needs to go out. And one of the other horrible things was that he tasked me, and I saw the need because our front desk was, and it's that 60-year-old person sitting at the front desk, sometimes even depending on the time of day as a 90-year-old guy. They're getting inundated with crazy people calling on the phone that want to scream about this case that they saw on YouTube, they saw on the news, and all this stuff. And they want to yell at this person that's making minimum wage at the front desk that really
Yeah.
just says, records is over there. And so I started telling them, just forward the calls to me. Just forward the calls to me. I'm very deep in this case. I know a lot about it. I know what we're allowed to say to the media. So it's what I'm going to say to the public. Like, the public is the media. So I'm going to say it to them. And there was some people that just, I'd get in and I'd have sometimes 30 missed calls and 15 or 20 voicemails. And there people just screaming, cursing at me, like all this kind of stuff. And I'd just write anybody that felt like needed a call back or they left a number or whatever. It wasn't like anonymous. And I'd call them back like at like 4 o'clock in the evening. Everybody'd be like bailing out of the office. They got to go handle some stuff.
Yeah.
But I just kind of like, as if I could crack open a beer, I'd, you know, get my water or whatever, maybe fix another coffee. And I just like start dialing phone numbers and calling people back. And I was able to fall back on, and I didn't mention this part of my career. I was a part-time because my city is not a full-time hostage negotiation team. I was like 8 years I was on the hostage
Oh
negotiation
wow.
team. It's a part-time unit, so you get called out and you do trainings and stuff, and if there's a situation where SWAT's out there, you get called out to assist if you've got to do that communicating. So I was able to fall back on a lot of that um, training and actually put it to use, pretty much negotiating every one of these psychos, most of them being from Michigan. I don't know what's up with the water in Michigan, but there was a lot of people from Michigan that were calling, and I'm like, I'd even ask them, why is everybody from Michigan? Well, because we find it's very important to talk about this kind of stuff in America. Okay, all right, cool, dude. Keep going, like, and so I was able to, like, sometimes one at a time, like, sway hearts and minds, or at least get people to look at a different point of view. Maybe if I didn't even agree with it, I'd just kind of try to get people to open their minds one at a time. Because, in a chat forum or on a Facebook post, you're never going to be able to get the
No, you can't.
communication
Yeah.
across typing it out. So having this conversation with a person, and I had several get off the phone with me and just be like, I disagree with you, and I think that's still horrible, whatever. But I thank you, Officer Yarbrough, for having the humanity to have a conversation with me about this topic. So, it was a crazy time, and it definitely ate up a lot of my soul through it. But I get through it, and you just gotta do what you gotta do, and then try and find the best of it, which was good training, good training in crisis management, and dealing with people and customer service. So, but it was cool. And that kind of sort of with the other story, and still harping on the fact that, like, I want to kind of protect our guys and our people out there working. When the news would call, and so for instance, they called one time and they're like, we heard that there was a whole bunch of mail theft. It spurs once in a while where people just go through and they just empty out mailboxes, and most of it's overnight, which you shouldn't be leaving your mail in your mailbox overnight. You should collect it every day, but sometimes people forget about it. And so I said, all right, let me look into it. I hadn't heard anything about it because you're semi-detached, you're in the building, you're upstairs, you don't hear all the scuttlebutt. So I go over into the detective division and I said, hey, I went to the crime an analyst, which was a lot of times what I would do, because she gets all of it. And then she spits out data points. And so I said, hey, have we had a rash of mail thefts? Like, what's the deal? And she's like, nothing out of the ordinary, but so and so just made an arrest the other day for mail theft. And I was like, what? How do we arrest somebody for mail theft? Isn't that a federal offense or whatever? Like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it just so happens this guy, it was like a Sunday morning. This guy he gets an alarm call in an industrial park, and he's just driving to go to the alarm call, and he turns the corner, and there's one of those gang mailbox setups at an industrial park where there's all the slots, and it's like an apartment complex
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so what those people will do is they'll steal the skeleton key from a mail carrier. They'll rob them. They'll have it. And then they've got access to all those in a certain area. So they
Yeah.
just go, they open up the main lock, swing the door open, and just clean it all out. And when you think industrial park, you're talking businesses on a Friday that are either sending or receiving checks. So you've
Yeah.
got a lot of checks in there. And then it turns into Catch Me If You Can, where they're washing these checks or cleaning them a little bit, and they're adding zeros and cashing them wherever they can, and doing all that kind of stuff. So you got a lot of fraud happening from that mail. And so this guy's just on an alarm. He's not looking for a mail burglar, and he pulls around the corner, and there's this guy, and the guy's wearing a ski mask. It was probably 2023, 2022. So it's like COVID-y. A lot of people still wear masks, maybe, but he's like, his explanation, the officer's explanation to me when I did the news story on my end, the research, he's like, I read from the guy's mouth with a ski mask on, oh fuck. Like, so he's like, this guy was not checking his mail. He was up to no good. And so the
Yeah.
guy jumped in the car, took off, but it was a dead end because it just goes into a dead end in the complex. So the guy had to come back. He almost hits the officer with his car, and he jumps a curb and breaks his axle. So he's foobarred. He's not going anywhere. The
Yeah.
car's there. It was a Mercedes. The whole back seat was filled. Like if you were sitting there, it was filled past your legs, full of mail. Like the guy had just been emptying out mailboxes all night long. There was like two
Oh my
stolen license.
God.
There was like stolen license plates in the back and everything because you just switch out plates from
Yeah.
stolen cars. And so we had a whole thing. So we made that arrest. And so I got with our crime scene because our crime scene and our detectives had taken pictures of all the mail spread out on the floor. So I had all these pictures. I had this whole story. So what I did was the news calls, and a lot of times if I wasn't about my salt, like knowing what I'm doing, I'd just be like, yeah, we've had 17 mail thefts in the course of this thing. And then they're going to be like, well, what are you doing? We're upping our patrols in the area, and we urge the public to remove their mail out of their thing. No, I was able to create a story that's better for the news because now they're getting more eyes and more ratings and more clicks on their websites because saying my name, whatever, the police department makes an arrest on a mail thief, and this is the whole story about it. So it's like you're actually able to spin a negative into a positive, even though it's still kind of a negative because mail was getting stolen. But then I'm able to go get on the microphone and tell the people when they ask me these questions, do the crime prevention aspect and actually explain. Like, remember guys, get informed delivery from the postal service. You go on the website, you type in your information, you get an email every morning that tells you everything that's coming in your mailbox. And so it's a great thing because if your mail does get stolen, then you knew what was in there. Oh, it was a bunch of junk mail. I'm not so worried about fraud because there wasn't one of my credit card slips or social security check or whatever in there. So I was able to always provide that information and spin that story to kind of make the department look better. And that's really what I tried to do every day when I was doing that role, when I had to answer sometimes the tough questions.
I think a lot of people don't know that aspect of it, but that's awesome as fuck. Like the whole thing was just crazy. But I get to the point of, maybe you're not directly involved with this shit, but you're making people understand why this is necessary, why it's going on, and how we're fixing it. So that is awesome how you did that. What you're doing? You did 5 years beat, 5 years.
Yeah, 5-6 years in the schools, then
then
so
6 years. And
so how did I wrap that up? If you want to get to that,
yeah,
we had a changeover in chief. A guy that I'd known for a long time became the chief, and a lot of the department. This is where I could get beat up at work, but whatever. They know I'm leaving in December. There was a lot of people in the chain of command that were all looking at the next level of getting promotions, because when you change a chief, you've got to pretty much change one ring all the way up.
yeah,
And then you might have some others that go by the wayside, or if the deputy chief doesn't get promoted, then they're probably going to retire or they're probably going to leave. So then you've got more. So it's like ching, 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 ching. Tetris starts to really clean up the board. And so there's a lot of people looking to move around, and in my opinion, he wanted a lot of yes men to be around him. He was really trying to fight for the job, trying to get it going. And I don't feel that that's the right way to be. I feel like people need to be challenged. They need to be, even if it's just, I try to do it in day-to-day life. I try to ask the most ridiculous question so that we're prepared for it. And that could come from the media side of things, but it's just life. Like, what's the worst case scenario? Like, let me ask you something screwed up and disagree with you, even if I don't believe in it, because somebody's going to disagree with you and you need to know the answer. You need to know how to answer it. And so I'm not a yes man, unless, I'll do it if I believe it. And so I challenged him kind of just on some silly little pumpkin patch type thing. And, none of these new leaders had the gall or the thought process of what they were doing, and they were like leaving me out of meetings and stuff like that about this stuff because they all wanted to chit chat about their future aspirations, and they knew I wasn't about future aspirations. I wanted to be good at my job, and I wanted to do my job well. um, and so I kind of stepped on myself, I guess, a little bit. And I got a phone call that said, or, hey, come upstairs. Oh, my little hair light died. Um, Came out, it said, come upstairs. And they gave me my letter and they said, you're going back to the road. Depressing as hell
Wow.
because I was really good at what I did. And there's a lot of people in the community and in the news and all that kind of stuff that called to complain on my behalf, and, unsolicited. But, that's
Is that a
one
big
of
drop? Like, is that a kind of not a demotion, or is that
no,
a
no,
big drop though, isn't it?
no, it's just a specialized unit, and now you're back to the road, and
But
and my
there was no backing to it. It was just like you're back to the road now.
yep, yeah, because they have what's called management rights, and I said, so any criticism, any explanation on what I did wrong? Can I learn from this? No, you're an asset in everything you do, and it's just time to go back to the road. And I'm like, that's not really the answer, but all right, And then my union president was upstairs for some other business, and they were like, "Oh, are you coming up here to ask about Justin? It's management rights." And he's like, "I wasn't, but okay," And he told me about that, and I was like, "Yeah, they're that's a new tool in their tool belt now that they're management. They're all excited to throw that phrase around, and that's their prerogative, and they got me shut down. It is what it is. They're going to run things the way they want to run it and model things the way they want to, and whatever, like, you know so I'm back to the road, or I came back to the road, and so now it's about a year and a half ago. And it's just crazy. It's crazy, dude. Like, it's just the stuff on the road. And I tell people that when I started in that first 5 years, we were chasing bad guys, setting up perimeters. There was robberies, there was purse snatching type stuff, fights, all this kind of stuff. Times have changed. They're not doing it as much. I feel that they're more involved in fraud, and that's how they're getting their money. They're doing telephone scams, all this kind of stuff because it's harder to trace them. They're
Yeah.
probably getting more money out of it. There's less risk of physical violence because you're not getting bit by a dog or jumping a fence or getting beat up by the cops or whatever.
Yeah.
You're just calling an elderly person pretending like you're Bank of America and they need to transfer money or Zelle you something or buy a gift card to pay your power bill or whatever. And people are falling for it, and they're just getting money hand over fist, and they're not having to do anything. They're just making phone calls. It's ridiculous. Just a
Yeah.
theory. I have no actual analytical facts
Well,
on that, but
well, I'd say like to quote Easy E, the 211, right? The
mhm.
breaking and entering.
Yeah.
Like, people have Ring cameras now. They have
Yep.
every inside shit, the Vivint stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of shit where people install now to where it is so much more riskier instead of just breaking bars on a window or something. Like,
Totally.
I'm sure it
Yeah,
is very more difficult.
South Florida, you got to think we've all got impact windows on our houses now. They're not these slotted jalousie windows that are all dry rotted from the
They'll look
1960s
cool. Yeah, the
that you
cool
just stick
ones
your
from like
fingers
a
and you just
Jimmy
go,
Buffett video. Yeah,
yep. Yeah,
it's
you're
all
not prying windows open. They're hurricane impact windows, so you're not smashing them. They're heavy. They've all got brand new locks on them and stuff. And then, like you said, you've got. I mean, I've got them around my house. I get alerts. Every angle of my house has crossing fire of
yes, the
fields of
sectors.
fire.
Yeah,
And so I know as someone walks around my house, the lawn guys, it's like I'm getting alerts going crazy when the lawn guys are there. So you know all this stuff. You can talk to somebody at your front door.
yeah,
So you stream it live, and you can call 911 and say, "Oh my God, here they are!" And then here's a screenshot, and I'm going to text it to 911. So yeah, there's a lot less hey, I just saw some feet, slink into a window. Oh, burglary in progress. Let's go, guys. It's just not happening as much. Um, so the times have changed, and then it's the homelessness, the mental health, which some
Is
of
it
those
bad
are
down there?
intertwined. Oh man, we're just half of my job to three-quarters of my job is just pushing bums around, moving them from one parking lot to another.
Because you can't take them anywhere.
Hey,
We
no,
we
there's
just had this conversation at work about how we were like, what's that movie? One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
I love
so
referencing that. One
I
thing I
love
learned in college about in the 70s when they started closing all of them, and I always reference One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. At the
giant
end of the movie when they pushed them all out and giant, yeah, all that.
giant influx of homeless people
Yeah.
that are psychos on the street, and it's like, okay, I get it. Yeah, you don't want them getting lobotomies, but now you went from the pendulum swung from here to here now.
Mhm.
So now
Yeah.
we have these psychos on the street. I mean, I was stationed at JBLM, and we're up in. I would take my wife up to Seattle, and you would just see needles
Oof.
everywhere. You would see
Yeah.
homeless people. There'd be people screaming at you on the street, and you're like, what the fuck is going on here? Well, they can't do nothing with them because there's nowhere to take them. So they move
Mhm.
them. That's a big thing in big cities. They move them from one area to another, and it's like,
Oh my
okay, here
God.
you go. And it's like, well, what the fuck did that fix? Like, I don't
Dude,
get
we
that.
were just up in Calgary, and I couldn't believe the amount of just bums out there, just
Really?
blatantly smoking meth right there in a bus stop. And I was calling them transformers because I'd watch them like they'd walk a couple steps and then they'd like turn into a ball, and then they'd like start to like slowly come back up. So my wife and I were just sitting on a bench outside of a restaurant, and I was making like the transformers noise. I was like, watch this lady. And she'd like get small, and then and then at one point she'd been there for probably 15 minutes, and she moved maybe like 15 steps. She like found a cigarette, relit it, and it like energized her, and she all of a sudden straightened up and walked and got across the street and was like looping, and my wife's like, where'd she go? And I was like, man, a cigarette just
Yeah, she
changed
got a
her
cigarette
life.
ready to
Yeah,
go.
it was yeah, Calgary was crazy. And it's one of those areas, like our knock on wood, our bums aren't, I mean, I guess some of them, like when they're hiding in their tents and stuff like that, we get the fentanyl calls and they're overdosing and we got to give them some nasal spray and wake them back up and all that kind of stuff. But, um, yeah, it's just crazy. And we're constantly running people to the mental health hospital to check them in for everything, for everything.
I'll do you
So
one
it's
bigger.
sad.
You talked about that. I just want to bring it up because I want to get this out there. I think it's psychotic at staff duty for us, which staff duty is run by your brigade or battalion. Typically battalion and brigade, but for us it's just brigade. They
Mhm.
have Noxalone, which that's your nasal spray that you were talking about, right? Noxalone, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's NAC, something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whatchamacallit?
Our
It's for
our
us.
our
It's
brig-
the for us. It's oh God, it's my brain's off
yeah,
in a distance. But yeah, it's just, Narcan. For us, it's
Narcan,
Narcan.
same thing,
Yeah,
same thing.
yeah,
You have to sign for it now at staff duty
hmm
for the army, which
yeah,
means if a soldier is ODing on fentanyl or whatever, you have to run up and give them that.
yeah,
That is absolutely psychotic for like uh at that level it's like a private and a sergeant and then maybe an officer if they're there. Maybe not, or a warrant, whatever. They have to run up to the bears and give somebody that. Like
yeah.
the fact that we're at that level that we have to worry about that, it's asinine.
That's that's crazy. Yeah, that you're supposed to be in this professional environment and all that, and somebody gets messed up, and it's not an accidental where you came across it or something like that. You're on base or whatever, and it's like somebody's bringing that in,
That'd be your
and
desk
they're
sergeant, right? That'd be like your desk
yeah,
sergeant
like
having
if
it on.
yeah, if we had that, or yeah, just any of our guys working in the building, and then all of a sudden somebody starts convulsing or passes out. The detective bureau, they're all at their desks or whatever, and somebody just starts,
Oh, get the Narcan. You're like,
yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and you usually need more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. you got to go too.
I, to the point though, I think that's nuts. You know, we've been down a couple rabbit holes tonight. It's crazy that we have to deal with that, and
Mhm.
you're having to deal with that in your last couple of years as you get towards your retirement stuff. How are
Yeah.
you feeling with that? With getting back on the street and stuff? I'm sure there's some fun to it, some not. How are you feeling overall with it?
Yeah, it's fun to be, on the senior squad, those guys that I mean, it's not the guys that I looked up to because now I'm here and it's a lot of guys at my same level. But to know that position that I'm in that senior squad is like, man, that's me. Like I still feel like a 10-year guy or whatever, a young guy, and I'm somewhat rejuvenated. And I'm always honest about, like, I recognize the guys that I work with now that have been on the road for 20 years and they haven't had the opportunities to go to units to expound beyond just showing up to briefing every day. So I get that for them, and I get why guys have different outlooks on police work, where I might be a little more, jubilant or whatever, a little more happy when I show up to work, and they might be a little more grumpy. I get that, and I'm not blind to it. But so I just try to kind of have a good time with them, and I got a good buddy that same guy I eat lunch with every day, unless he bangs in sick, and then we're palling around all day, hanging out, if it's under a tree, or if he says, like, hey, let's go do some traffic stops, let's go do some hunting. All right, cool, like, let's go hunting, bro. And so we go looking for traffic violations, or somebody doing something wrong, and just try to do some real police work sometimes, because we're those technically old guys, that aren't really going to do anything. But because we've done it, we've seen it, we've had fun, and we're just so, like I've said, like, oh man, I really shouldn't do some of this stuff because I should be just like chilling out because I'm this close. I don't want to screw it up, or fall off the ledge right at the end. But I'm looking forward to it. My wife's trying to get me to plan a retirement party. I told her I'm going to have a gap year before I do anything after I retire, but I highly doubt that because I can't sit still. But I'm just trying to get this podcast stuff going strong and having fun with it, and seeing if I can make it sustainable to where it pays for itself, and then maybe brings in a little bit extra to supplement that retirement. I'm comfortable with what I'm going to make in retirement, but you can always use a little extra. We like some of the finer things in life sometimes. I like to travel, so it's exciting. It's bittersweet, and not that you asked me, but I've thought about this because I know it comes up in interviews or whatever, job interviews, like, what's a big regret, or
Yeah.
what's a regret that you have, looking back on your career, and at the time I thought, in that 10-year range, I thought, you know what? I don't want to lead these people. Like, I had like a little bit of a bad attitude, to where when I went into the schools, I was like, this is going to be a great opportunity, study for the sergeant's tests. A lot of guys get made sergeant out of the schools because they get a lot of free time sitting in there. They can study and bone up on all their stuff for the tests. And I was like, I don't think I want to lead these people. I don't. And coming to this point now, knowing that, I've made the decision, like, I could stick around. I could do 25 years total is the smart way to do it. 25 years, and then you can add a 7-year drop on top of that. So I can do 32 years total. And so technically I'd retire at 25 years, but I'd stay on. So I'd still get paid, all that kind of stuff. But the
Yeah.
money that would be going into my pension goes into a separate account called a drop account. And then that just makes money. And so after like 7 years, you make about 100 grand a year plus compounding interest. So you're probably
Jesus.
pulling $800,000 just
Yeah.
in that account, aside from my normal pension money. So it's a great lucrative thing, but I'm in a situation in my life where I don't necessarily need that. Um, And I've made that decision where, yeah, I'm going to leave at 20. I'm going to go on and do something else. I'm going to start another career doing something totally different. Who knows? But I look back and I go, you know what? I think I don't like to say regrets, and I don't have the tattoo, but I don't want to do the no regrets thing. But I think that I think that the department probably lost something without me, not to sound, I'm usually a humble guy, but not to sound big headed. I think there was an opportunity where I could have been a great leader, even as a sergeant. I have a bunch of friends that I came up with that have all said, I'm just a sergeant, bro. I'm sticking at sergeant. I'm not going for lieutenant. I'm not climbing the ladder. I just want to be a frontline supervisor, work for my guys, that kind of thing. And I see it now. And if I could go back and do something different, I would totally, I would have taken the test. I sat in for an orientation day for the test, but I didn't sign
Yeah.
on to the test. And I think I missed an opportunity, and I probably should have done it, because now I look at myself, reflection, and I say I've got a lot that I could offer. Um, for training purposes, for experience, and what I could give these young guys, and that would be motivation to do it. I'm motivated to do it, but I'm also looking at the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think if I was a supervisor, I'd really probably stick around longer and impart that knowledge on people. And so I'm doing them a disservice, but whatever, fuck them.
No, it's hard, man, when you, cuz so like me, right? Like I've never for like 2 months I was, but really didn't count. I never really got to lead soldiers besides drill, which
Mhm.
drill is a completely different animal. But
Yeah.
like I always wanted to be a platoon sergeant, squad leader, or something like where I could like impart knowledge. I have these guys that I'm in charge of, and I want to help them like better their life, not shit on them. I just want to make their
Yeah.
lives better and do good at their job. Um, and I love that, man. Like you're good, you're looking at it at all the right aspects, which sucks because I feel like a lot of the guys that get the job unfortunately don't look at it in that aspect. They're just
Hmm.
disgruntled, or fuck them. I'm trying to figure out my life, fuck you, I don't need, whatever.
Yeah, I'm just doing this to pad my pension,
Yes,
to
yes,
get out of whatever lot in life I was in the department. I didn't like the role I was in, and I'm just trying to make that extra
same,
scratch,
same.
you know. And it really is, and it goes with those friends of mine that said they just want to be a sergeant. Those are the sergeants that you want to work for, the ones that are advocating for their squad, that are making sure their guys have everything they need, that they're getting what they want, because in turn we know this, those guys are going to give you their all too, and they're going to give each other. So
we
um
we
but
had a guy
yeah.
that said rank isn't what you wear, it's the knowledge you share, which is
Hmm.
probably the gayest thing ever, but it's very true. It's very true.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was really good aspect for me early on in my career.
Yeah, I mean, I always see people, like when I was in my, community affairs job, and I had to pretend and kiss commissioners' butts and stuff like that. I constantly go back to the Spider-Man and Doctor Strange conversation. Oh, we're using our made-up names. Like, like you have to refer to them as commissioner. It's like,
Yes.
no, dude. No, dude, you're just a guy. Just like I tell everybody my name's Justin. I don't need you to call me officer. I don't need this, fake respect. Like you'll show respect to me in however you show it to me. It doesn't need to be in a name, like it needs to be in how you treat me, and how we work with each other. Whether you're a person on the street that I'm dealing with in a call, or whether you're a commissioner or a supervisor or whatever, like these freaking names, like.
Yes. Yes. Dude, yeah. I I get that. I get that wholly. I think it's probably a problem across all civil service jobs because these guys work towards that. Um,
Yeah.
I'll get us. I wanted to get into this. I know we got a little bit of time, but Justin, you do all this career. It's amazing and stuff. You're getting up to your point. What made you get into the podcast, man?
Yeah. This is a good one to kind of sum it all up and get it going. Yeah, So I mentioned before I did the soccer podcast. So I had a little bit of experience in that, and that was fun. And we got to work a lot with the team and do some interviews. And we got players that came over to my buddy's house, and the team would bring them over and let them talk. And these guys were semi-professional; they were pro guys, so it was fun. And so there was that. But then I used to do a lot of work with the guy Nick from City of Miami. He has a personal YouTube channel, as well as all the work that he does for City of Miami. And he's got a lot of experience, and I'm always like a sponge, trying to pull as much knowledge from people as I can. So he reached out to the department and asked if he could do an interview about a car for his personal channel, and I pitched for it because I wanted to learn from him so that I could do better on our social media. And so I started working with him, did a couple videos, different stuff with him. And it was coming around COVID, or it was COVID, and he was really trying to do some work with departments, but it was having a tough time. So we were talking a lot and doing like on camera stuff. And I was like, we should do like a podcast, like, and talk about cop stuff. And so we started spitballing ideas, and I was like, donut shop, and cops sit in a donut shop and somebody interesting walks in. Yeah, a lot of times it might be police officers, but you might get somebody else from the streets, and it's going to be cool. So like, let's get that started. So we built it out in his garage in I think it was like August of 2020. And he had a lot of contacts. So you got City of Miami, so you got a lot of different stuff and a lot of people, and you got people that were on TV shows like homicide investigators that were on First 48. Freddie Ponce, he came on the show twice, and he was great and told some awesome stories. So it was really cool, and we did that for a couple years. And so it was kind of off and on. It wasn't like a regular thing. We'd film sometimes 2 episodes in a day and put them out, but it was all still very wild west. Like there wasn't much structure to scheduling posts and how you
Yes.
advertise for it and stuff. And there's a lot better models nowadays and how to do it. So we were doing it, and we'd kind of go off for like 3 months and not really have an episode. Then we'd schedule a bunch and we'd pump a bunch out. And so it was cool. And it was always fun, and we had a good time. And I was sort of the sidekick, um,
Oh,
he
you
kind of
really
always
weren't
would say,
featured as much in it. You really weren't asking as much, or
yeah, I was always there, but from the soccer podcast that I used to do, that was 4 people and there was like a couple big personalities. I don't
yeah,
like arguing on the radio, or I don't like arguing on the microphones or fighting for airtime.
yeah,
Um, so I'm less, I'll sit back and I'll wait to throw in a punch or whatever, or try to get an attention to be able to say something. And so with him, he's very larger than life, commands the attention of the camera, wants the attention, wants it to be all about him. So that was him, and I'm more modest about it, so I'll stay back and let him run his thing. I'm happy to be there and lend whatever I can into the conversation. Um, and so we were doing it. We ended up, a guy invited us to bring the studio that we had in his garage into his conference room of his t-shirt company warehouse, which was really cool. Felt like, hey, we're made it to the big time. We have a
yeah.
keypad that we have to do to get into a building that's not ours, and to record episodes without any management here. This is awesome. So it was cool. And so we did that for a little while, and then it just kind of went into one of those natural breaks where I didn't really hear from him for a while. And then I was trying to get it cranking again. Like, hey, we've had some people reach out to the social media and they want to get on the show. Like, let's start scheduling some stuff. And then it turns out that he was kind of working another angle without me, and building out his own podcast, and starting something new. And then he's starting a business with recruiting aspects and everything like that. And it wasn't in my cards. I wasn't asked to be involved. And so we kind of just drifted that. And he told me, hey, you can have Donut Shop Podcast. And I was like, bummed, but I was like, all
Yeah.
right, let's try and rock this out and see what we can do. I've got my public information officer media experience, and I had most of the equipment myself. Let's run it. So he gave it to me, and so I
Yeah.
took it over full force. I did most of the producing and the behind the scenes. So he did some of the scheduling because he had the connections. So that's just really my struggle, is the scheduling of guests. But otherwise, as you can see, I can just sit here and talk or listen to somebody talk or whatever any time of the night. So, and that's where I've been running. It's been cool. And I met up with Tyler from the Anti-Hero podcast, and he's a powerhouse now in this veteran first responder scene, podcast scene, and he's had some great ideas, and he does some great work, and we stayed in contact after doing an episode for my show, and he had some opportunities where he created this media company, and so you've got Counterculture Inc., which has been pretty fun. It's a cool thing because the idea is it's not to be totally a sound booth, or what's the phrase where we all an echo chamber.
Echo
It's not to be
chamber, yeah.
all the same. um we try to have different personalities, and I'm definitely one of those different personalities where I'm
Yes.
not a bombastic shit talker.
And you're
I
not
try to screw around.
yes. You're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I would just I'm a big counterculture fan, right? I'll say
Cool.
it.
Thank you.
I'm a fanboy, right? Like I'll watch this stuff. I love Anti-Hero, Reagan with the Unbecoming,
Conduct Unbecoming. Yeah.
Unbecoming, Cotville,
Mike from
and
Copville.
Tone Alert, all those guys.
Yeah.
I love watching it, and then I love watching the counterculture live, and it's so funny seeing all the different personalities combined, because I'm like, obviously there's a couple that you guys can watch for yourselves, but there's so many that are, like you said, bombastic, I guess is a
Yeah.
very good phrase. Like
Yeah.
it's very in your face, like we have this opinion, and then there's other guys that are like, well, we see it that way, and then it's like, and then there's other guys even that are like, no, fuck you, this is how it is, and it's so
Yeah.
fun to hear all those come together. It's super fun.
Yeah, and we're all coming into where we've got sort of like expertise in different fields. Kenny's awesome too. Red Ninja, he's got Beyond the Barrel podcast. He has a great training company, Trap Find, and I think Leadership Academy. I forget. I've got it over here somewhere, and he's gonna rip me for it for not knowing the actual name.
He'll be
But
on
Kenny
eventually.
Trap,
I gotta get a hold of him. I
yeah,
just reached
Kenny's
out to
awesome.
all of them. I reached out to get a hold. If anybody's listening at this point, good on you. But because we're at
Yeah,
2
thanks.
hours, but because I talked about getting, I really want to get like all the counterculture guys. I'm not affiliated. I just really like them all, and I've gotten about
Yeah, I think three of us. Yeah.
3 or 4. I got Tone Alert, Tyler, you,
Oh, in Copville. Yeah.
Cottville, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna get Reagan eventually.
Yeah.
That motherfucker, I gotta get him on.
None of
I
us can
know
get
he's
Reagan on
busy.
the.
It's so hard to get a hold of him, but I want to get everybody on. But Beyond the
Yeah.
Barrel is a very good one because it's so good. But all those guys, they have such great. It's a different show. All of them you watch, from you
Yeah, and I mean,
to
like even
Anti-Hero.
Anthony, one of the other guys that comes on,
Anthony, yeah, Heroic
he's
Industries,
got
right?
Heroic Industries. He's got freaking a double psychology degree, like he said the other night. He's got a master's in psychology. So I mean, he's got, and then plus with all of his personal fitness background and everything, he's like a wealth of knowledge in a lot of these topics. So
Yes.
it's a cool group, and it's fun, and what we're building. And one of the things that you're talking about, for anybody that's, like you said, still listening, thank you very much. Friday nights at 9 o'clock Eastern, we do an open mic. It's basically just a Zoom call where we're all just talking trash.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's
And
super fucking
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
we try to have a little bit of structure. I've tried to get Tyler to structure it a little bit, but sometimes the structure goes away, or we might have one video we talk about, and then the rest of the time it's just shit talking. And it's fun. It's a good time to just sit and grab a drink, and if you want to watch it, or get on it, that kind of thing. And we have fun with it. And you know, we and then we're rolling it into we've done two of them now, kind of three, but two of them, these live shows where we're in a location. They did Philly first. We just did New Jersey at the beginning of the month, which was amazing. That was my first one. And we're looking at kind of doing it. That's what these podcast networks do. They do these like live shows, almost like a
I
concert.
watched it. I watched your
Yeah.
live. It was so great. For those that didn't see it, go check it out. It was chaotic, but it's so fun to watch the chaos unravel.
Yeah.
Like it's super fun. The uh the conversations that are had are literally like you and your boys sitting around a
Yeah.
bonfire, like debating shit. Like it's
Yeah.
so fun. I can't
Yeah.
stress that enough. Like
Yeah. I mean, and it's hilarious because like sitting next to me was the guy Mike Dowd from the 75 in Brooklyn
oh
that's been
yeah.
to jail. And one of my buddy from like the soccer podcasts is an NYPD cop. And he goes, "Bro, did they just say that's Mike Dowd there?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I don't know if I'm allowed to be in the same room with him. Like, that's persona non grata for NYPD. Like, I could get in trouble for being here, even in his presence." And I'm like, "That's awesome." Like, so,
Yes,
you,
dude.
you
Because
know,
that guy was
so
wild, man.
yeah,
Check that guy
pink
out.
suit.
Good Cop, Bad Cop podcast. If you guys check it
Yeah,
out, that was Mike Dowd is a character, man.
yeah, yeah. Turned his life around, but went
Yeah,
to prison for 12 years. He was a mob enforcer, basically, stealing drugs from drug dealers and selling them
yeah,
on the side. And, he's a mess.
yeah,
But yeah, it's,
yeah,
it's still young. We're growing.
yeah.
We're learning from each event. And, I mean, we're trying to see if we want to do events more often. I'm like, hey, give me 7 months and I'll be retired and I'll fly wherever you want to fly and do these shows, wherever, because it's just cool. And it's cool to, be able to have first responders, military, like hear things that aren't necessarily, um, filtered. And granted, I played that game for the police department, but I didn't necessarily filter it in a bad way or make it too PC because, like I said early on in this podcast, I strive to be as honest as possible. Like I hate telling lies. I don't like falsehoods. It's too hard to keep track of. I just know if I consistently tell the truth, then I don't ever have to worry about remembering what I said. Did I say that? Yeah, that's what I meant, and that's what it was. That's the truth. So and so to sometimes hear from real police officers, real veterans, or real guys on active duty, or real firefighters and stuff, the trials and tribulations, I think it helps people associate to it better and hear it. And then these guys are also willing to play it WWE style, where they'll flip heel on you and argue the opposite point, even if they don't believe in it. But
Huh.
kind of like I said, where I like to play the devil's advocate and shoot the wrong answer at you and make you think.
Yes. And that's the fun part of all of this is you
Yeah,
want to hear the other aspect, whether it's right or wrong. You want
yeah,
I'm trying to get this guy on. I don't know if I'm going to get him, but there's a guy that's a very, very liberal guy. Every post he makes on Facebook is if you support Trump, you support treason
yeah,
and like all this stuff, right? And I'm like, I want to hear that guy's aspect because
yeah,
people think like you're like liberals are crazy. No, like they'll probably have a point. Everybody has a point, whether it's
yeah,
army, police officer, like whatever. I don't mean to get into politics. My point was, I love the aspect of another viewpoint. Like it's so
yeah.
fun to hear.
I just want to learn. I want to learn from you because you've got a different background than me most likely, and so you're going to think differently. And I just want to learn, and that's one of the things that like sometimes it makes me feel bad that I don't challenge people as much, but I really just want to listen. Like I want them to feel unaccosted when they're telling me this viewpoint because I want them to teach it to me. I don't necessarily think I'm going to walk away believing it, but I want them to teach it to me so I understand that rationale and that point of view. Just like I try to teach people that call in about the police officers' actions and stuff, I try to explain to them what the mentality of a police officer is, because you don't live our life. You don't know what we're thinking of when we show up on a scene or what we just came from. So, you know, I don't know what this liberal sees every day, you know, like, you know, so, yeah, I mean, so I'm down with that. And I don't end up challenging people a lot of times, unless it's just blatantly ridiculous. If, you know, in a podcast, I'm saying I try to be
Yeah.
a more cordial host.
I-
I'm not anti-hero. I'm not calling people out,
yeah.
you know, but they do a great job in what they do. You know,
That's
Copville,
not us
Mike
though.
loves to
Me and
call
you are
people
not
out.
going for that,
Yeah.
you know. We're
Yeah.
not going I feel like me and you are more going for the stories, and if we have
Mhm.
a different viewpoint, you can say it, but that's not what we're going for here necessarily. I
Yeah.
don't know if you agree with me on that.
Yeah, no, I do. Yeah. So that's what Kenny from Beyond the Barrel does to me. Like last night on the live, you know, this will air probably later on, but Friday night on the live, I wore a hoodie and I put my pit vipers on because I was
Bro,
trying
you
to
look
play.
crazy. I was just gonna ask that before we ended. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was trying to play a character. I just wanted to see if I could pull a character. And then the guys got
That
mad
was
at me
fun.
because none of them wore sunglasses. So, you know, it was just
Which they
I
do
was
every other time. So I was like,
yeah.
damn, it's a
I
rough
was
look.
trying to do something. I was trying to see if I could play a character for him, you know, like show him that I have range, man. I'm able to be an
Range.
actor or whatever, you know. So it's
Yeah.
kind of, you know, let loose, man.
Justin, we'll end on that, bro. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
thank you enough for coming on here. That was a good story. You told us everything. You told us what's going on. I loved it, man. Thank you for
yeah.
coming on here.
Appreciate you, man. It was fun. Yeah, it's a good show.
Yeah. Glad you liked it. Guys, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, whatever. Thank you for coming on. Y'all have a good
Oh
night.
yeah. Donutshoppodcast.com. That's where you can find it all.
It'll all be in the links, I promise you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
All
have it
right.
all down there. Please check him out. He's awesome.